Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All blessed Srila Prabhupada, welcome to our evening Bhagavad Gita circle reading program. Today, we will be continuing with chapter 14, verse 26. Chapter is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature, and it will be read and explained to us by His Grace Pritchard Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. Without further delay, we will go right into the verse, and it's all yours. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirveshesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshacharini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 14 entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature, text 26. Manchayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samatityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Translation by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Purported by Srila Prabhupada. This verse was a reply to Arjuna's third question. What is the means of attaining to the transcendental position of material nature? One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna activities. Krishna activities are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna, but his different plenary expansions such as Ram and Narayan. He has innumerable expansions. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or of his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge, and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So if one engages himself in the service of Krishna or his plenary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, he can overcome them easily. This is already explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature. To be in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service means to acquire the equality of Krishna. The Lord says that his nature is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. And the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, as gold particles are part of a gold mine. Thus, the living entity's spiritual position is as good as gold, as good as Krishna in quality. The difference of individuality continues. Otherwise, there is no question of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual person. Otherwise, there's no meaning to Bhakti Yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualification. Thus, the qualification is to become Brahman, or freed from all material contamination. It is said in Vedic literature, Brahmeva san Brahma Pieti. One can attain the Supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. This means that one must qualitatively become one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one does not lose his eternal Brahman identity as individual soul. Text 27. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amitasya vyasya cha Sattvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya ajkantasya cha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness, and which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The constitution of Brahman is immortality, imperishability, eternity, and happiness. Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Paramatma, the Supersoul, is the middle, the second stage in transcendental realization. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the Absolute Truth. Therefore, both Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. It is explained in the 7th chapter that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord impregnates the inferior material nature with the fragments of the superior nature, and that is the spiritual touch in the material nature. When a living entity conditioned by this material nature begins the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, he elevates himself from the position of material existence and gradually rises up to the Brahman conception of the Supreme. This attainment of the Brahman conception of life is the first stage in self-realization. At this stage, the Brahman realized person is transcendental to the material position, but he is not actually perfect in Brahman realization. If he wants, he can continue to stay in the Brahman position and then gradually rise up to the Paramatma realization and then to the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many examples of this in Vedic literature. The 4 Kumaras were situated first in the impersonal Brahman conception of truth, but then they gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. One who cannot elevate himself beyond the impersonal conception of Brahman runs the risk of falling down. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that although a person may rise to the stage of impersonal Brahman without going farther, with no information of the Supreme Person, his intelligence is not perfectly clear. Therefore, in spite of being raised to the Brahman platform, there is the chance of falling down if one is not engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Vedic language, it is also said, Rasa Vaisa, Rasam hi vayam, labdvanandi bhavati. When one understands the personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendently blissful. The Supreme Lord is full in 6 opulences, and when a devotee approaches him, there is an exchange of these 6 opulences. The servant of a king enjoys on an almost equal level with the king. And so eternal happiness, imperishable happiness, eternal life accompany devotional service. Therefore, realization of Brahman or eternity or imperishability is included in devotional service. This is already possessed by a person who is engaged in devotional service. The living entity although Brahman by nature, has the desire to lord it over the material world, and due to this, he falls down. In his constitutional position, a living entity is above the three modes of material nature, but association with material nature entangles him in the different modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Due to the association of these three modes, his desire to dominate the material world is there. By engagement in devotional service and full Krishna consciousness, he is immediately situated in a transcendental position, and his unlawful desire to control material nature is removed. Therefore, the process of devotional service, beginning with hearing, chanting, remembering the prescribed 9 methods for realizing devotional service, should be practiced in the association of devotees. Gradually, by such association, by the influence of the spiritual master, one's material desire to dominate is removed, and one becomes firmly situated in the Lord's transcendental loving service. This method is prescribed from the 22nd to the last verse of this chapter. Devotional service to the Lord is very simple. One should always engage in the service of the Lord, should eat the remnants of foodstuffs offered to the deity, smell the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, see the places where the Lord had his transcendental pastimes, read of the different activities of the Lord, his reciprocation of love with his devotees, chant always the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and observe the fasting days commemorating the appearances and disappearances of the Lord and his devotees. By following such a process, one becomes completely detached from all material activities. One who can thus situate himself in the Brahmajyotir is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in quality. Thus end Bhaktivedanta Purported, the 14th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in the matter of the three modes of material nature. Hare Krishna.
I'm just thinking before you go to the next chapter, probably we can discuss this chapter, the three modes of material nature, and probably we can get a little more time to ask questions from the last 2 verses that you read. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Would like to, thank you so much for reading the last two, because for me they seem pretty powerful. So I will that's why I thought probably we could ask some questions. Would like to ask if boys have any questions, any comments or clarification, please do unmute yourself or you can put a question in the chat. I have a question, and from the verse 26 that you read just now, a key word that stood out for me is unfailing. One who engages in devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances. Can you please shed some light on the term unfailing in all circumstances? What does that actually mean?
In the Nectar of Instruction, one of the things in which Rupa Goswami instructs us as the mood to which we approach devotional service: the determination, enthusiasm, and patience. With these three, determination, enthusiasm, and patience, it is not going to be that difficult to stay consistent with devotional service. Determination. When a person is determined, whatever circumstances or trials that meet the person in whatever they're doing, because they're determined, they try to find their way through it or over it or around it, but they'll move on to the next thing. So challenges don't stop the person from doing what they want to do. So Rupa Goswami advises us, Srila Rupa Goswami, that this is one way to approach, or this is one of the ways which he describes to approach devotional service, with determination. Determination keeps us from falling down. It keeps us from saying, oh, this is so hard, I can't go on. I want to stop. A determined person does not entertain that. The next is a person who's enthusiastic. Enthusiasm is the emotion in which we do something, the service. If a person is excited to do it, then they will put more of effort into the whole body and mind are together wanting to do that service. So that's what enthusiasm gives us. Enthusiasm is also infectious in a positive way. When a person is enthusiastic, people around them pick up on that energy, and they also become whatever energy that they had before would change to a more positive one. An enthusiastic person does that. Patience is also very important in devotional service. As Srila Goswami says, we should definitely apply it. Because when the challenges come, it doesn't matter whether, it's not a question of if the challenges come, it will definitely come in some situations of service. When the person was determined to do it, there's also the chance of impatience. A person is determined and they'll try and try sometimes, and then there's some challenges, some other things they have to do, and they may become a little impatient. And therefore, Srila Goswami also advises that there should be patience applied in Krishna consciousness. As far as patience is concerned, in today's world, everything is being done faster and faster and faster. But that is a more the passion way of doing things. We just talked about the modes of nature. Passionate ways, they want things very quickly. And so this is not how devotional service works. Devotional service is steady, not necessarily slow, but steady. And so patience is required in situations that come up. And with that, maintaining a positive attitude, enthusiastic attitude, determination, and then patience, then we'll be able to go through one service after another without the possibility of us falling. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for shedding light on that. As you're speaking on the three, yes, Krishna, please go ahead, ask your question.
Or comment if you want.
No. I want to hear yours because I'm thinking you and me might have the same thing. So go ahead.
Okay.
Oh.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble
Hare Krishna, accept my request.
Thank you for reading this wonderful verses.
Mercy.
Srila Prabhupada is giving so much emphasis for the right reason about on the devotional service. So I was just wondering, over the course of our devotional life, so-called devotional life, we just kind of become very oblivious to what we are doing. So if you can please say a few things about what really the service, or maybe I'm trying to remind myself, what should be considered as a service, and on top of that, a devotional service, which means, and that just doesn't become a activity. It should be a service. So how to make sure we are conscious of that, to make sure it is a service to Krishna and devotees, not just like a mundane activity, or I hope I'm able to express my questions.
So, and when you're doing devotional service, or we're serving devotees, serving Guru, or serving the deity, one of the things that we can do to help our mind focus on the service is the constant chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Especially if we are concentrating on the mantra, the words of the mantra, it would immediately bring to our intelligence and therefore to our mind the fact that the service that we're doing is in answer to that particular mantra. The mantra says, Dear Radha, dear Krishna, please engage me in devotional service to you. So you're asking and you're also doing the service. So when devotional service is being done with something involving other aspects of it, like if you're hearing a kirtan, you're hearing bhajan, you're hearing a lecture, because you're talking, the question was like, we just get to a point where it seems like it's mechanical. But when the mind is focused on activities in Krishna consciousness or reminders in Krishna consciousness, and the mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is a great reminder about what we're doing, then the chances become reduced that this becomes a mechanical situation. Actually, in a sense, it connects to the question that Madam Sia also asked when we brought this. When you're determined, when circumstances sometimes that are challenging come, and you have to find ways, intelligent ways, or sometimes through prayer, try to get around that, or solve that situation and keep going. It is not at that point going to be a mechanical way to do it, because you have to think through what you're doing there. So that's why circumstances sometimes that are challenging comes also, because it breaks our monotonous way of doing things. The other thing is, we have to understand that service is duty for us. It's duty for us. Srila Prabhupada described many times in Bhagavad Gita relating to Krishna's requests, which obviously was being considered very much by Arjuna, so love between them as friends, but requests to do his duty. You're a Kshatriya, you should fight. So when you're trained to do a particular service, it's also very important to realize it is my duty. It is my duty. That type of mentality also makes us concentrate more on what needs to get done and do it with good quality. So all of these help to kind of keep things from becoming just monotonous and done without much thinking. Hare Krishna. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And another question that I had, that was a very nice question, Dear Krishna, because sometimes, when we do the same service in and out, day in and day out, it becomes so monotonous that we just forget the mercy factor or the taste of the service, or the sweetness, and we just get it done because it's like a job, get it done. So thank you for asking that question. I really appreciated that. Another question I have is, you spoke about determination. In this age of Kali Yuga, it's just amazing how Kali Yuga is just progressingly so bad that sometimes our determination is it gets changed to something that is not important. How can we really recognize that we need to have real determination for Krishna consciousness, because we have so many other pulls in life that's making us feel like, I don't know, I have to go do that. That's my determination. But how can we really put Krishna consciousness as part of the real determination? I don't know if I'm making sense here.
Yes, you are. So the determination is consistent or is maintained by associating with devotees who are fixed up. Sometimes different trials may come our way, and Maya may use that to try to change the service that we're doing. But when you are around a person that keeps in touch with you and you can keep in touch with them, and they are doing service and they are more determined, in other words, you have to be around a person who really, really has sold their heart literally to Krishna. By watching that person, by communicating with that person, and by working with that person, then you maintain the proper attitude towards service. That's why it's been said that devotee association is so important, that we really can't make it back to the spiritual world without devotee association. Devotee association is just said generally, but actually the quality of the association is also important. But we do need to be around somebody who is more experienced, talk with them, get advice from them, open up and share things in confidence with them, and get confidential advice based on Krishna consciousness from them, and that will also help for us to work steadily in Krishna consciousness without falling down. If you remember in Gita Nagari, sometimes there were meetings, Bhakti Maharaj, Gurudev, his disciple meetings, and they got to a point where he realized that, and he also suggested after the realization, that we should keep a partner that would remind us about our services, and literally, call or receive calls from them, and so that we can help each other to maintain the things that we need to do. Because he was well aware of the fact that we were going to be tested, and we were fairly new in Krishna consciousness, and we were going to be tested by Maya for different situations. And so, again, but it comes to, when you think about it, it's association of devotees helping each other. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a excellent point that you made, that it all depends on our association. If we're in the right association, that it increases our determination and our enthusiasm. And if you could speak, these points are so important, I feel, and that's why I'm asking questions, is that in terms of enthusiasm, what causes lack of enthusiasm? I know that one of it is inattentive chanting, that causes lack of enthusiasm. What else besides, I shouldn't say besides, what else in addition to inattentive chanting causes lack of enthusiasm? And
sometimes it comes indirectly. When you don't have compassion, your mood is bound to change. And when the mood changes, then it would affect the quality of service and enthusiasm which you put into it. Now, that comes in two ways. Sometimes the person would be lazy and not do the service, or the person would still be doing the service, but they become hard-hearted, thinking that I know better than others and so on. And that way, they don't care too much about the feelings of other devotees and so on. And that can over time erase the enthusiasm that's there, because it's a heart issue. It's a matter of emotions of the heart. This whole service is, we're not getting paid for it. We want to do it because we want to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a view to developing love, which is what we have missed in the material world. Love of Krishna Prema later on. And so it is very, very important not to be hard-hearted or not to be lazy. Both of them can affect this whole enthusiasm. Hare Krishna.
What about inappropriate association and offenses? Does that affect lack of enthusiasm?
The association, when you say inappropriate, association with non-devotees?
No, I mean devotees, because there are some situations where when we are not in the right association, even in the devotee circle, because we didn't choose the right, like when he spoke about determination, right? We have to hang out with devotees who are determined, because not every devotee has that same determination. So in that same mood, in terms of enthusiasm, if we are not in the right association with enthusiastic devotees, we naturally will not become enthusiastic. That is what I'm thinking. But what about offenses? Does that also play a part in lack of enthusiasm?
Srila Prabhupada said that when there's offenses, then everything is spoiled. And when it's offenses, everything is spoiled. That means everything means everything. And that would also, if not sooner, later, it would affect. Sooner or later, it would affect our level of enthusiasm. Yeah, you definitely don't want, offenses is like a mad elephant disease, the way it's described. You have a nice devotional garden cultivated, and the mad elephant of offenses comes through and messes up everything that's in the garden. So we can't afford that. And again, I'll quote from Bhakti Maharaj that he said that those who are fixed up in Krishna consciousness, one of the very, very, very important things that they watch for is to make sure that they do not offend others. And offending others mean not only saying something that's bad or making them upset, but sometimes saying even the right things, and sometimes this is where it gets subtle. The right thing, but saying it with a wrong emotion, saying the right thing the wrong way. It is the right thing, it's a correction, you're right, but how it came out in an offensive way, in a jabbing kind of way. So we all have to be very, very careful how we relate. And there's so much at stake for this particular society that Srila Prabhupada has labored so hard for. There's so much at stake. His Holiness Bhashana Swami made a comment one time in Gitanagri that ISKCON faces severe challenges because in any society that the expectation of quality is high expectations, then the problems are also large. The problems are also large. Does not mean that we cannot overcome problems because we have the protection of Lord Chaitanya. But we have to be aware that at any time we can go through greater temptation. See, Maya already has people who are into sense gratification, and they already cornered. He doesn't have to give them temptation because they're already in it. But those who are trying to get out of that and go into the light of Krishna consciousness, that's where Maya will concentrate the effort more to try to bring it down. So we'll face more challenges. We're living a life of detachment, Ita Vairagya, the regulated principles themselves that we live by, the four regulated principles, are contrary to the way the majority of people live in this world. And this is how we're living. And so the other type of not obeying the regulated principles are always there, which is the temptation that Maya can give us. And so we have to be, that's why being in good association and also hearing lectures is very important because they guide us. Krishna arranges for the lectures and Srila Prabhupada's purpose, and those who quote Srila Prabhupada's purpose and give you more examples from it, to guide us in the right way in which we look at things. Krishna's mercy is there. That is also a form of mercy when we get the guidance. Guidance means sometimes we have particular things that worry us and we'll hear a lecture, we hear a lecture and that thing will be discussed and the solutions will be brought up. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, I was thinking that way. By the end of the day, the solution has come, or the next morning through a dream, next morning through a lecture that we heard, or a discussion with a devotee, that particular thing the solution for that has come. That guidance and love is there by Krishna to move us forward. We just have to stay the course, as they say in America, stay the course, and be careful about those things we need to be careful of. That is especially aparat offenses. Then we have a very good chance of going back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for bringing this amazing points. I think it's so important and so needed in Krishna consciousness, especially for one's own devotional creeper, to be aware of the importance of devotional service and how to develop the mood of enthusiasm in devotional service. At the same time, to be patient, which is something that I don't think it's always talked about, is patience in devotional service. We just do the service and we just do it. But I think patience is one, character or attribute that is not so much spoken about. So and another one is determination. So these two are like two important points. I feel like we could definitely, explain or share more. But thank you so much for touching on it and shedding some light on it. Very, very good points. Thank you. Any other questions from you? A small group here, but any questions from devotees? Any thoughts or clarification? Please do jump right in if you can before we wrap up. and very nice topics. I always like such amazing topics on devotional services. So purifying, I feel. And if there isn't any question, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for reading these two amazing verses. In fact, when you're reading 1426, now I know why Balabhadra Prabhu said is one of his favorite verse. It's really
he's memorized it. He used it, and Sri Prabhupada also could. Rama Vuyaya Kalpate. So many times he talked about it.
It's a powerful verse. I mean, when you're reading it, I was like, whoa, it's really powerful. Yes. Thank you so much for reading these two verses, and we thank you for joining us this evening. Vanshokraptibhyascha, Kripashandabheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful evening, and look forward to seeing the gang tomorrow for our picnic. Haribol.
Haribol, Hare Krishna, thank you.
Haribol, Prabhu.
We'll be there.